I went back to Palestine for the first time about a year and a half ago, 2 years now, and it's a well-known thing that you have a very brutal interrogation process if you're a Palestinian. It's called the VIP treatment, the very important Palestinian treatment. And I wrote this poem as a response to that interrogation.
And now we have a special guest, and I will briefly introduce Zena. Zena Agha is a Palestinian-Iraqi writer, poet, and activist from London. Her writing explores identity, immigration, and life in the diaspora. Zena's poems have been translated, published, and performed internationally, and we are so pleased to have her performing some of her poems for us here at Old South Meeting House today.
Thank you everyone for coming. I know the rain and the snow, which is very off-putting for everyone. I thought I would do a few poems for you this afternoon. Some of them have cropped up in other places, but the more I live in this world, the more I see the resonance of their meaning. So I wanted to open with a poem called XMen Immigrants, and I wrote this a fair few years ago now. As you can tell, I was raised in the UK. I'm from London, which is the most cosmopolitan place that I've ever seen. And I feel like, particularly in the political climate that we're in, that cosmopolitanism and that diversity is always at risk. So I wrote this kind of somewhat prophetically, just about the beauties of immigration, essentially. We don't know it yet, but our streets are being lined with mutants. That's right, Cyclops, Iceman, Angel, and Storm are reborn, unworn, and not yet torn, and they walk between you and me. They sit beside you on the bus and the tube. They man CCTV, fight adversity, guard gas stations, sell us commodities. They help us when our dishwashers break and save us when lives are at stake. We never thank them, barely acknowledge them. And some of us, we even try and fight them. And some of us don't even know that they exist, yet they insist and persist on anonymity, secrecy, and public decency. They don't inform us that they have different DNA, chromosomes creating new characteristics, flaunting evolution's logistics, statistics mutating in the face of the future race. Imbued with gifts and talents unknown, powers not yet shown, they've grown into hybrids. Caught in the liminal, still experimental, only first, second, or third generation, still nestling into a new location, struggling to lay some sort of foundation. I'm not talking X-Men, I'm talking immigration. You see, our immigrants are superhuman. They uprooted and traded their lives, stepped into the shoes of ghosts, all for security, for safety, and that myth of no more poverty. They sold their soul to Beelzebub for a British passport. Now they're cutting teeth on locks with keys in faraway lands like spores. They were strewn across the world, the diaspora. And they are mutants because they are an amalgam of here and there, enacting a marriage of mannerisms. They keep the cellophane on TV remotes, and they won't take the plastic off new phones. They bear the pain of leaving brothers behind, events that time simply cannot rewind. Yes, they watch Takia soap operas, and yes, they collect cool cards like stamps. Some of them build empires, some build pyramids, some dwell in wastelands, and some lose their grip on it. They struggle to say where they're from on their Facebook profiles, and they circle other on the NHS race forms. They introduced Diwali, Hanukkah, and Eid next to Christmas. They sat Ramadan and Yom Kippur next to Lent, and they gave thanks to God knows who. They work twice as hard to be considered half as good, and they are the brave ones. Where we only speak one language, they speak 2, 3, 4, mother, father, brother, tongue. Where we only know the sun to set in the summer, they felt the monsoon's wrath and the sun's strength. And where we only know skin as white as moonshine, they know men with eyes the color of rainbows. And land where women with hips and thighs are still considered beauties. And where we only speak one language, they speak 2, 3, 4. And where we only have one identity, they have a plethora, each laid onto the sediment of the last. And they're not called Shadowcat, Wolverine, or Dazzler, but Patel, Muhammad, and Mullah. But in this version, there's no Professor Xavier to unite them, to nurture and support them. He's not there to prove that these mutants can be superheroes. Westchester Mansion is hidden in Bromley, Bradford, and Brixton. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived at our trouble. Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants appear out the rubble. They now control our newspapers, our radio, and our publishers. They lurk in parliament committee rooms and sit in city boardrooms. They have barbecues with our neighbours and sort out our taxes. They speak evil thoughts. Think poniards, and every word stabs. They upset our children with their dualities and upset our intelligence with their falsities. And I hate myself for saying it, but I reckon not even Mrs. May can save us now. You see, we've got into this rut and we don't know how, so fight. Though the mutant genes are not your own, throw them a bone and let them call this Marvel universe home, and for God's sake, just leave them alone. Because we are born, we live, we die. The years, they keep on flying by, and the thought of hating seems so silly when the remedy is educating. We created passports, borders, and ethnicity. We invented race and dichotomy. So sit on the tube with your head held high. Realize that the guy by your side, like you, might look to the sky, and realize that though what he says may be unknown, by discriminating, you're alienating one more superhero from the throne. Thank you. The next poem I'd like to perform is called Borderland, and I wrote this about a year ago now, and I've always thought borders are ridiculous. I don't know, there's something so childish about carving up Earth and deciding who gets to go where and why. And I say this in the throes of a visa application right now with and all the stress that comes with that. But my mother comes from Iraq and my father comes from Palestine, and my father's family are refugees in Syria at the moment, but I went back to Palestine for the first time about a year and a half ago, 2 years now, and it's a well-known thing that you have a very brutal interrogation process if you're a Palestinian. It's called the VIP treatment, the very important Palestinian treatment. And I wrote this poem as a response to that interrogation. Name, father's name, grandfather's name. You have curly hair. If I had a sister, I think she could look something like you. Where are you from? Tiberias. Oh, you're from here. Your question drips with violence. No, if I was from here, I would not be a security threat. If I was from here, I would not be being interrogated by you. If I was from here, why were we moved from here? If I'm from here, why can't I live here? And if I'm from here, why has it taken me 23 years to get back? Your colleague, my cousin, asks me where I was going. The territories? She looks through my phone, reads my emails, checks my contacts. She takes my cousin's name and his number. He is Iraqi, and so is his area code, but he is a refugee in Fortress Europe now. He wrestled the Purple Sea to sit silent. She's also pretty. Long hair, a blue jumper, and behind her, Bibi sits proud, half smiling at my homecoming, clumsily large in the celebratory cell. His image hangs limp and flaccid. Have you participated in any protests? Do you know anyone here? Their names, numbers? Have you been to Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan? When did you delete your Facebook? What courses are you studying? Do you speak Arabic? Why do you have an Arabic keyboard? Because my mother wanted me to learn the language of my ancestors, and Darwish taught me that land is inherited like language, and my sister says I'm from here, so please excuse my literacy. Do you keep any blogs? No, it's gone. Can you show it to me? No, it's gone. She has pretty eyes too, dark like mine, and I mirror her in my head. Why did you want to interrogate travelers? What was the army like? Have you ever been in love? Where's your grandfather from? Is he from here? Has he ever been to Tiberias? Is it nice? Because although I am from here, I cannot answer. Show me your blog. No, it's gone. Are you being sincere with me right now? Her head cocked sideways, and I paused. What a weird word. Sincerity implies honesty, authenticity, and respectability. No, and neither are you. This is a game, and we are well matched. You can send me back home to my grey sky at Imperial Island. But my sister said I'm from here, and your questions degrade my homecoming, so please, be reasonable. Be sincere. Because winning is not entry and losing is not denial. Winning is staying free, staying beloved. You cannot intimidate me, scare me. You can search me, question me, detain me, and I will tell you my truths, but my skull is made of stronger stuff. And if you'd asked me my grandmother's name, I'd have told you Zena. It means treasure in that language I lied and said I don't speak. And my skull is her treasury, her Palestinian memory, where we know where we're from and we know it's right here. So you can question me and I will tell you my truths. Like pearls from the oyster of my lineage, you cannot win against us. So I suppose I am your security threat. My 3-syllabled identity negates your falsity and my family blasts your rewritten history. I exist. And as long as I breathe your air, this soil will nurture me. Now my sister said I'm home. So I hope you know that I'm home. Thank you. I wrote this one. I haven't actually performed it in a few years. My grandmother, my last remaining grandparent, died unexpectedly in Baghdad in 2012. And I wasn't sure how to honor her, and I still haven't quite worked it out, but she was a marvelous woman. And I wrote this poem for her, but for strong women everywhere. It's called Matriarchs. I never got a chance to say goodbye to you, the matriarch. You never helped me because you never hurt me, and you never saved me because you never saw me, but you were the bedrock, the foundation stone and the keystone. The bridge was held up by your sardonic ways, and travelers felt safe to pass over because they knew implicitly that you would never let them go. Rivers cascaded beneath and below you, pulsing like a current through you, and you were living proof that blood runs thicker than water. If I could, I would enshrine you, embrace and embalm you, because I never got a chance to say goodbye. Boosters meant to grow and care, not kill and tear, killed you, but you, O matriarch, you're the type to live on. You see, your nose is duplicated onto the face of generations. Sniffing out deceit and halting capitulations, your shoulders hold steady, Atlas-like. They allowed scores of travelers to pass by. Icarus melted out of the sky. You were their mother, like nature in her prime. You taught them how to spit, how to rhyme, how to not lose their shine. You were the head of the family, living on for centuries. You, matriarch, never needed a patriarch to liven up your story arc. You were a one-woman show. Your eyes sparkled like carbon through the cataracts. You were untouchable but unsavable, not unlovable but improbable. You never learnt to read or write, but you schooled a generation through years of different plights, upturning with solid might. You wrote the Bible on strength, signed your name at the end, and my only regret was to not be there when your time was spent. Thank you. So I suppose I'll finish with a poem that perhaps got me here. It's called Palestine, and I wrote it during the last Israeli incursion on Gaza in 2014. I perhaps should be careful with the word last there. The trouble that's going on right now indicates we have a lot more pain to come. But this was my feeble attempt to say that we haven't forgotten Palestine and we know where we're from. And we'll keep fighting and we'll keep persisting. I wish I can extend a hand and help you. Lift you up out of the dredges, out of the doldrums, the misery laying like a corpse on the altar of your mind. Because your oppressor is like a boat, my mother says. Like Noah's, it towers over the rosy flesh below, but unlike Noah's, it has no life on board. It was the fate of the Palestinians to be forgotten in the millions, and the world stopped seeing them, because it was in no one's interests, really. They say they are entrepreneurial, enterprising and corporeal, dictatorial in their majesty and humbling in their gravity. But my father told me that they were normal, rural, stealthy, full of glory. Lord knows how much of that is true. You know, man likes to make Midas of time and turn the days into rhyme, rewind the crime, blind to imperfection. Gold-plated yet still frail. Because I saw the photos, and I know the history. I read it in books, don't act like it's new to me. I know Palestine is not a fabrication of my mind, double speak, double think, but it's carved in indelible ink. On the lining of my heart, my soul, and my path, it holds my hand like the father I wished I had, like the homeland I should have had. It envelops me like diamonds on the grind. And I am not alone. Though Jordan might be the stepping stone from occupied territory to democratic misery, we are all linked. We don't need your string-wired plastic cups, not with quivering souls of empathy. We're telepathic in our aptitude, magnanimous in our servitude, scarred by man's ingratitude. Oh, the Watan, the home, nation, state, a land, a loss, and a love. Know this now. You will never wipe us out. Wreck our homes, take our keys, shoot our boys, uproot our trees, build your concrete sandcastles, indoctrinate your children, separate your citizens, victimize the innocent, demean and degrade us, slaughter and betray us, kill us and maim us, but watch us grow. Like poppies bloodied by the trenches, we will work our way onto your lapels, onto the tips of your tongue and the crown of your mind. Watch us grow. Palestine. 3 syllables of beauty, of history, antiquity, ancestry, legitimacy. Palestine. Thank you very much.
Very much enjoyed your voice and your poems. I especially like the underlying anger that prevailed, both your voice and your words, I think. I'm curious about your, the process of your composition. Do you have, maybe it's more evident in the last poem that you just read, but is there a particular audience that you have in mind before you start writing, or does that even matter to you?
Audience matters because of content. I think Palestine is a really contested and contentious issue. So it matters in terms of reception, but it doesn't affect my creative writing process at all. I write for myself. I also find that I never plan to write. I never think, I'm going to spend 20 minutes and working on this. Usually there's something, I'll just have a rush of feeling or a rush of emotion, or I'll feel an injustice and it just flows out of me, usually on my phone, and I kind of frantically type away, and then I put it to one side, and often I don't really revisit. I don't edit very often, which perhaps might be a strength or weakness, I don't know. Apart from the first poem I read, which was XMen Immigrants, which took several weeks to compose, and I kept revisiting and kept reworking, and I realized, I don't really know anything about X-Men, so that took a bit of time as well, and that process was a bit different. But on the whole, it's very much just a burst of energy, and then I kind of try it out with different audiences and see what holds. And I think also a lot of it comes down to the message itself. It's the audience. The audience matters to me, but if the message is true to myself and my belief, then I'm not so perturbed by that, and I like to think that I'm not writing something that will be there to embolden hate and embolden sort of intolerance, and so I don't think that the message is in danger necessarily, so I feel much more comfortable writing and performing it.
Thank you.
So obviously what you write about is extraordinarily personal to you, both in theme and what inspires you. When you started writing, did you ever think you were going to share these things with people, or did you start just as a way to get it all out? And how did you, become internationally known?
Well, it was actually really funny. I've always written, but I usually write fiction, and I find that as like my preferred medium, short stories. I'd never thought of myself as a poet, and I went to this amazing festival in the UK called Brainchild Festival, started by my friends, and it was the first time I heard spoken word. I was 18, and I just was like, wow, this was powerful. And I started a sort of internship at this phenomenal interest group in the UK called Operation Black Vote, which tries to get more ethnic representation in Parliament, because historically we're underrepresented. And so I kind of turned up on my first day and was like, I have a great idea. I think we should do like a poetry film series. And it was a testament to the organization. You know, they're a policy group, but they were like, no, let's explore that. And so I spent the summer filming a group of really phenomenal poets and writers, and I sort of thought much more critically about, you know, the messaging and the way that it can affect change. And after that, I kind of realized that it wasn't some sort of esoteric, I mean, it could be esoteric, but a lot of it was kind of just about being able to articulate things which aren't given a platform usually. At least that was how I was engaging with it. So I went back to my university and I was like, I'm going to start a poetry collective, because there was a dearth at my university, not a dearth of writers, phenomenal writers, just a lack of organization, shall we say. So I teamed up with some really great art students on campus, and I coordinated this phenomenal collective called Shoot from the Lip with some great people, and it just grew into this phenomenal organization that still, you know, we still have poetry nights throughout the semester, even though I'm here. You know, it's run by this really great poet and professor called Jack McGowan. And during that, I started writing myself. So during that, I started putting the words together, and we would have our meetings to plan these events, and then I would start kind of, you know, soliciting advice and feedback and stuff. And the confidence really came from that. And there was a feeling of doing something that was fulfilling. That is what really kind of got me into it. And I'm not wedded to it by any means. I mean, it's something, like I was saying earlier, that when I started, I realized was just giving me a sense of freedom to be able to speak my truth. And I realized that, you know, if I wanted to be able to express myself, then poetry right now was fulfilling that. So that's kind of how it happened. And I just think I had some really lucky, surrounded by good people and sort of right time, right place moments maybe, or maybe it was more intentional, I don't know, but that's kind of how I ended up here doing this. Yeah.
I'm just wondering that there are a lot of personal experiences as I relate, as you recite your poems. You do it with such a powerful delivery. I'm just wondering if I get to read it, would it be the same experience? So I'm wondering, do you publish your poems?
I haven't. So actually, this is I made this for my best friend who asked for her 21st birthday a collection of poems. So, I don't know if it was her 21st. Anyway, my friend who's an architect now and has got great graphic design skills, we sat and actually made this. We glue bound it and printed it and stuff. So definitely not something that I share.
So you can't get to read it?
A few poems have been published in different sort of magazines or websites. A poem which I didn't perform, which is called The Sea is Big, about the Syrian refugee crisis, is been translated into Spanish and is also published in English. So there are a few places I can read, and I'm happy to pass on. I can send Erica a list of places you can read it. But I never wrote with the intention of it being read. I like the idea of people sharing.
It's great delivered.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know, I think maybe there's something almost off-putting about only being in written form. I like the idea of being able to really just look at the person that I want to address and you know, perform. But yeah, I'm hoping, you know, long-term visions, perhaps have a collection out. And I think as well, I'd be curious to see if someone hadn't heard me perform and had just read my work, how they would read it or how they would make sense of it, because I wonder if it reads kind of quite simplistic, or, you know, whether they see a meaning in it that I might have missed in the way that I perform it. I don't know.
The theme of diversity and loss, and it's so, and it's very, very easy to resonate these days. So many people.
Just to add to that, I would say that in addition to, once we get this performance available online, Zena also has a website, and you can see there, if you click on the poetry tab, you can see some previous performances of some of the poems. So I already knew, I don't think I had read anything in print, but I felt like I already kind of knew some of the poems she performed today, because I had some sneak peeks at them. So that's another way to, yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All
Thank you for
right.
having me. Cheers.